Recording.
It's live. Hello, everybody. Thank you. Thank you guys for tuning in. Jens just found out this is an actual live stream. So this is our first live stream we're doing here at WunderGraph. We're doing a WunderGraph Ask Me Anything. So thank you guys for tuning in. Today, we're going to be covering some topics as well as answering any questions the community might have. I already have some questions I'm going to be asking Jens that the community has asked us. And it's going to be super exciting. I'm really happy about this, and we're going to be doing this bi-weekly, so that way, as we continue to build in public, everyone will be able to see what we're doing. And we're also going to be highlighting, some of the topics from our roadmap and how we've, covered them, how we've achieved them, as well as many other things. So Jens, you want to give yourself a small introduction? They might know you already.
What intro? I founded this company. My name
perfect.
is everywhere on every blog post, even though other people write them sometimes.
Exactly. So guys, this is Jens. My name is Stefan. I'm one of the co-founders. I'm also a Markdown expert because I don't even code anymore. I just write everything in Markdown for the blog posts.
Did you ever code?
Yeah. So believe it or not, I was a software engineer for 2 years, but yeah.
So you
I
had the
did
title.
code. Yeah, I just had the title. That's it.
Yeah.
And guys, please excuse my background. I am in Orlando visiting my parents, so I'm not in my professional studio that is provided by WunderGraph, but in the next one I will be. So let's get straight into it, Jens. The first topic that we have from the community is this new auto-generate operations. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, we work together with a. Can we say the name or should we not do that? I don't want to do anything bad.
Whatever you want. You're the CEO.
Huh? Okay, we work together with a big company that has 3 letters in the name. And essentially the use case is very simple. So they do something with e-commerce. They have a whole bunch of REST API endpoints. I think more than 200 API endpoints actually. They explored WunderGraph. They really liked it. So they use WunderGraph to introspect all the endpoints, and then they wanted to use code generation to make WunderGraph accessible to, or the APIs accessible to multiple front-end frameworks, and also leverage hooks and other things to do some like TypeScript operations, to do some aggregations and whatnot, add some custom business logic, but just lightweight aggregations. And so, yeah, they explored WunderGraph, lots of API endpoints. And the big question in the room was, we don't want to write an operation for each endpoint, because more or less we want to expose all endpoints that come from the REST API. We want to, yeah, it's not KFC, man. Our internal Slack is doing jokes. Okay, so most of the REST API endpoints, they want to expose them as they come in from the REST API, and some they want to modify. So we needed to find a solution to generate most operations automatically. And yeah, I can actually show you how that works because it's pretty easy. Share screen, window. I think I share this one. Do you now see my window here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you see that. Is the size okay?
Yeah, but I'm seeing like our stream. The size is fine, but I think you might have the wrong window.
You see the stream?
Yeah, but I'm seeing not like any code or anything. I think you were sharing the wrong screen.
Give me a sec.
No worries.
Entire screen, not window, obviously.
There we go.
Now it should work. Now you see my coding environment?
Yes, sir. Give it a sec just so it optimizes for resolution. Okay, we're good.
Okay, so very simple example. We have some federated APIs here, and if you're somewhat familiar with WunderGraph already, you know we can do introspect federation. We give it an API namespace. In this case, it's federated. I copy that. You will see in a second why. We introspect this, and then we do APIs here in configure WunderGraph application. We pass the federated API, so it introspects that, adds it to the virtual graph, blah, blah, blah.
Jens,
you know this.
Do you mind zooming in just a little bit?
Yes, Stefan.
There we go. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Continue.
Yeah, so you pass your federated API here, and then WunderGraph does its thing. So this is our monorepo. You can actually replicate this if you're interested. So if I run this, what happens is we introspect all the APIs, and then for auto-completion purposes, there's this file here, WunderGraph schema.graphql, and I can zoom in again. And you will see if we go type query, and then we search for federation. Here, federated, you see the federated API endpoints or the federated fields. And okay, that's added to our virtual graph with namespacing. Cool. So now I want to generate operations from that because I'm super lazy. And let's say this had like 200 fields. What do? We have this new thing here. It's called WunderGraph generate TS. And you can see I already have some config. So we generate some code gen config. We generate TypeScript types, and we generate a Golang client and define a path here. And then we have operations generator. That's an arrow function. You can pass it some config. Here we can say config, and then, I don't know, wait. What do we do? Filter root fields, get base path, set base path. If you want to generate this somewhere else, whole bunch of things. And one thing we can do is we can add here federation, federated, and I save this. You can see at the bottom something is happening. And then you see here in my operations directory that now if I refresh the file system, you always have to tell JetBrains to do that. We now have this federated folder here, and it generated the me operation, the set price, mutation, top products, and updated price. So all of this automatically generated. And I can now go here and say, okay, this is also another feature. We generate an open API spec. And then you can see that, say, we want to execute this me query by creating this file here. If you're not yet so familiar with WunderGraph, you will note that the me file will actually turn into a REST API endpoint, or let's just say JSON RPC endpoint. But we can generate open API for that. So if we go to federation/me with the correct casing, it should be federated. Federated/me. You see here is the federated operation. We have a schema for the input. I can make that smaller. Oh no, we don't have any input. It's just the response. And here you see the response schema that's generated from passing the GraphQL API. So we can execute this. Click here. You see that's the data coming back. And that's our executed GraphQL document. And then obviously, sometimes you want to modify that. So if you want to modify it, you remove this header, because if you keep that header, the code generation will overwrite it all the time. So let's say we want to get rid of product parts here. So we remove that. We save it. I wait for code generation, although I need to just restart this guy here. Code generation. Okay, we're done. So if we go back to the spec, you will now see properties, federated me, reviews, and here's body and ID, but there's no more. What was it before? What did I remove? Product. Yeah, product is now gone. So if I now execute this here, click on that button. Yep, product is gone. And this way, if you have a lot of endpoints and you know, okay, most of this I can just export, and I want to go on the fast track, you can use this mode. And you might even want to customize individual operations or individual things. Then you can go here, config, and I think you have something like filter root fields. You have include namespaces. You can configure operations. So that means you can have an error function here, and then you can define the operation name type, and you can filter out whatever you want. So it's pretty flexible. Yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to show. So that's the new feature.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to know like how this feature came to be added to WunderGraph. So we were working with a large enterprise customer, and the best thing about some of these meetings is they come already with contributed code to our open source repository. So correct me if I'm wrong, but this was like 70% done, right, from an open source contribution?
Yeah, someone had an idea how to solve it. They didn't have the in-depth knowledge of the framework, and they didn't want to introduce any breaking changes or any bigger architecture changes. So they tried it out on their own, and we adopted their idea because I think it makes a lot of sense. And yeah, it was a great collaboration.
Very cool. And so yeah, now guys, you guys can go and auto-generate your operations. It's ready to go. It's been released already, right, Jens?
Yeah, that's released.
Okay, awesome. Next question from our AMA is, we've been getting a lot of questions about our landing page and that we are the backend for front-end framework. And you either know what a BFF is or you don't. And so now where's Jens going? Sorry, you're just getting shorter. But the next question is that someone from our community is asking is, Jens, what is a BFF or a backend for front-end?
It's some piece of code that runs on a server and aggregates APIs for you. It can handle authentication. It can handle file uploads. And usually you want to have a BFF if you connect the front end not to one single system, but to multiple systems. And most of our users, what they usually do is they have like federation API or federated GraphQL API or monolith, or they have some REST APIs, and then they have a headless content management system, and they have some other third-party REST APIs. So there needs to be some place where you actually put all of them together, because you don't want to do that integration in the front end for various reasons. One is, for example, you don't want to put API keys for Stripe into your front end, or how much of the API of your content management system do you actually want to expose to the front end? Probably not so much. Also, that again has an API key. And then there's instances where you have, let's say, a couple of REST APIs and you have GraphQL APIs, and then you need to present a page to the user that needs to load data from multiple services. Should this aggregation logic, should that be in the client? Should it be on the server? Should you put that into the backend? In the client, it's probably not so ideal, because then you get like long waterfalls in terms of performance. So the user is not so happy. And architecture-wise, if you do that integration in the front end, you have many point-to-point connections. So you have those dependencies between your front end and all these different services. So ideally, the front end really just depends on the BFF, the backend for front end, and the BFF is that integration point. And yeah, in my career, while working for other companies, we were facing this problem a lot of the time. And I always felt like it's a very boring problem to solve. I don't like to do it. Nobody really likes to do like gluing together APIs and then building adapters. And it usually means you have to write a whole lot of code, and it doesn't add so much value. It's not like enjoyable work. It's not that you like write cool algorithms or something. So yeah, eventually we had the idea of, can we automate this whole process, and can we build a tool that makes it simple to combine multiple APIs into something unified and streamline the whole process? And that's WunderGraph.
Very cool. And it's important to note, because someone's asking on Twitter, did WunderGraph invent the BFF pattern? And we actually didn't. It was first introduced by Phil Calcado at SoundCloud, but we did invent the backend for front-end framework, which is WunderGraph. So thank you, Jens, for that quick, brief history lesson on what is a BFF. The next is regarding our roadmap. So if you guys have seen, where do I host WunderGraph. Okay, perfect. So we have a question from a viewer. Jens, if you want to go ahead and answer that one, where can you host WunderGraph?
I don't see the questions. Like,
You don't
need
see
to
it in
tell
the
me.
comments? Yeah, so the question is, where can I host WunderGraph from Decoder? You should see it in the comments to the right.
Ah, okay. My small. What's the question again?
Where can you host WunderGraph?
Okay. That's a great question. So if you look at the architecture of WunderGraph, WunderGraph is essentially two components. It's the WunderGraph gateway, which is written in Go, and it's a coprocessor / sidecar. That's a Fastify server that runs the hooks and some other like TypeScript functions, for example, for all your custom TypeScript logic extensions whatsoever. So this is a tandem. And on the WunderGraph GitHub repository, there's WunderGraph GitHub organization. There's one project, it's /docker something. Just search for Docker. There's a Docker file. It bundles WunderGraph in a very simple way. And that means you can run WunderGraph wherever Docker is allowed. So we had very successful deployments on AWS Fargate, for example, people running that in production for hundreds of thousands of requests per second. And yeah, so really anything works. Kubernetes, Docker, ECS, Fargate. What else can I say? Obviously, WunderGraph Cloud. What is WunderGraph Cloud, or what makes it special? It's a full service solution where you really just connect a repository that contains a WunderGraph directory. You connect that with WunderGraph Cloud, and then on each commit, we deploy that. We currently also have something in the pipeline that is, I think, 99% done. If Switch could finally just merge it, maybe next week, that's previews, which means that we, for each pull request, if you open a pull request, we deploy that as well. But that alone wouldn't justify using the cloud. What's really special about the cloud is that you have an integration of our edge gateway called Heimdall, because Heimdall sits on the edge of the world and watches everything and makes it secure. So you get the edge proxy, you get your Wunder node server deployment somewhere. Okay, David is making jokes again, but that's fine. So you deploy your Wunder node in some centralized location, potentially close to your services, your database, whatever. And then you get Heimdall, you get distributed tracing, analytics, all of that in a dashboard. You get logs, automated deployments. Yeah, so a while ago we said this is the Vercel for backend. Now Vercel does a few more things for storage and other things. So let's now call it an open source Vercel-ish thing, but we don't do front end. We focus on APIs. When are you going to give up? Okay. I see Dex is Dex is loaded. Cool. Was that an appropriate answer?
Yeah, I think that was it. You covered all the places where we could host WunderGraph, and then we got some troll comments from David and Dax. But to answer your question, Dax, never. Dax, are you paying
I think I would avoid hosting WunderGraph on SST just because I don't like Dex.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so the next question is regarding our roadmap. So you guys have probably seen in Product Lane, as well as in our marketing, and as well as in our recent funding announcement, that we are building the GitHub for APIs. So Jens, walk me through that. What is the GitHub for APIs, and what do you envision for this in the future?
Thank you, Milan. I would avoid hosting WunderGraph, period. Yeah. Okay. GitHub for APIs. So if you talk to people who actually do something meaningful with APIs, who also like those people, they usually wouldn't sit here on this stream because they have actual work to do. Dax, maybe do something for your users. Oh, you have not. Okay, okay. Cool. Let's get back to it. What is GitHub for APIs? I need to switch off the comments. It distracts me. Okay, very simple. GitHub for APIs. We talk a lot with our enterprise users, and usually what we come up with is, so it's not something we wanted to do this all the time, but you need to do it at the right moment, which means you don't want to push a product into the market. It is much easier if you have the market pull that product. So GitHub for APIs, it was always something I wanted to do, but I had to put it on the shelf for a very long time just because we weren't ready yet. We had to do our homework and do some basic steps. So we did that, and now we're at the point where we're getting more and more into discussions with enterprises who tell us, we love WunderGraph, we love the idea of the BFF, we love the architecture. There's just one little problem. If I have WunderGraph and it depends on some other services, we do this thing where we work with API dependencies. Now I run into the situation that I have a front end. It depends on microservices from 3 different teams. How can I prevent that a change to one of the APIs of one of the microservices of those teams? How can I make sure that it doesn't break any of the front-end applications? So what WunderGraph already does is we have the system of API dependencies. We take REST, SOAP, GraphQL, whatever. We translate that to GraphQL APIs. And then we have this unified virtual graph, how we call it, and your front end can define operations against this virtual graph. That's API dependency management. That's more or less, I don't want to say we invented that. It probably existed before, but we made it a pattern that is easy to use. Okay, so that's great. But now the question comes up more and more, what happens, or how can I enable my teams to not break other people's APIs? And that's the first step we take for GitHub for APIs, which essentially means we build a registry where each microservice on deployment can upload their schema definition. So we run a CI step, a build time step, where we introspect the API. This can be like Open API, it can be GraphQL, it can be SOAP, the Whistle, it can be anything. We take the schema, we transform it to GraphQL, and we upload it to our registry. And so we create a service entry with that schema. Then our front-end application can go to the hub, and it can pull different services as an API dependency into the front end. So as a front end developer, I can say, okay, I want to use the shopping cart service, so I add this as an API dependency. Today, we do this kind of implicitly, but with the hub, we will make that API dependency explicit, kind of like adding an NPM package. And now the front end can define its API operations, like a me operation we just saw, or a mutation or something against the virtual graph that was created. And if we now deploy our front end, we again analyze what operations does this front end make, and we store that in the registry. And that means we can now see in real time what applications are running in the world and what APIs do they depend on. And that is not restricted to GraphQL. It can be really anything, because WunderGraph translates all your APIs into one single common format. And that means now if one of the teams changes a microservice. Let's say they change a SOAP service, or they change a REST API, they remove a field. During the CI step, we could translate that again to the WunderGraph format, and we can diff it against existing services that depend on this API. And we can immediately tell you, if you change this REST API, you're breaking something. You will have a breaking, or this application will have a breaking change. So you can collaborate with them, you can help them migrate off of that field, or you can prevent shipping that new version, or you can introduce versioning so that you keep running that old field with a deprecation strategy. So we're enabling a whole new world of collaboration between API producers and API consumers, so that people can actually move forward. They can evolve their APIs, they can change APIs, but they don't have to manually figure out or test what systems are affected by a change. And that is really the first step for us to build the GitHub for APIs, which in the end is a collaborative platform to bring together API producers and consumers so that they can evolve their applications continuously without breaking stuff.
Very cool. And Decoder, yeah, the hub is super cool. We built it a while ago, and then we realized it wasn't the right time, and just I cannot wait for this to really come into, fruition. It's going to be amazing. The next topic that we have is, let's talk about Relay. So a while ago, Jens posted a tweet that went absolutely viral about Relay. And I'm going to read it out loud. It's: every comparison of GraphQL versus whatever that fails to mention Relay is almost always useless. Even TRPC comparisons completely fail to understand fragments. It's very easy to dismiss the complexity of GraphQL when you fail to understand the core value of the query language. And with that tweet, it kind of just inspired us to move into a direction of making Relay great. And so today, if you guys haven't already seen it, Jens released a blog post why you should really give GraphQL another look. I'm going to repeat that again because it's a pun. Why you should Relay give GraphQL another look. So Jens, talk to me about Relay, and talk to me about how you came up with that pun, because I think David would like some credits for that.
Oh yeah, like David had the idea of this, obviously. I think Relay is significant because no matter what you use, React server components or TRPC or REST APIs, or all of them have something in common, and that is you cannot really build decoupled front-end components with those technologies, because the big issue that always comes up is you build a component that needs data, and because it needs data, the context where you actually use that component kind of tightly couples the component to the data fetching. So if you use TRPC, you fetch you fetch data in the root of your component tree and pass it to that child component. REST API, same problem. You fetch somewhere in your component tree, you fetch data, you pass it to the client. What Relay does differently with fragments is, instead of defining the data requirement at the top and passing the data to the children can say, or the child components in the tree, they can say what data they actually need. And there's a second thing, because you define those data requirements co-located with the component using a fragment. Relay also generates a data mask from this fragment, which means if you intend to use data that was not defined by the fragment, the Relay compiler will actually it will raise an error, and that makes sure that your component is really decoupled from other components. And for me, I don't know if you see that the first time, and if you understand fragments, everything else feels weird. And I know that other tools like Apollo client or something, they also allow you to use fragments, but they don't really encourage you. And for me, Relay is just the right way to use GraphQL, and I think it makes GraphQL so much more powerful. And the problem with Relay is, a while ago, I tried to use Relay with Next.js, and you search in Google Relay Next.js tutorial, you find a Relay Next.js package, you npm install it, you look at the documentation, you realize that this is actually out of sync. It's not so well maintained, and yeah, you dive into the relay.dev documentation and you realize this is out of sync as well. So there's a lot of moving things, and you really want to use this technology, but it's so hard, and it's not easy to get started. So we invested a couple of days, and I got my head around how to using Relay, the new compiler written in Rust. It's really fast. How to use that together with WunderGraph, and it felt amazing. At the same time, there were really like not so well maintained libraries to bring together Relay and Next.js, and so we decided to start a new project, which Danny took over. I'm super happy that Danny does this. Oh, we have a great question actually, and the point is that we are now building something that, let's not talk about the name for the moment, but we built a Relay stack that combines Relay, WunderGraph, and any front-end framework you want, like Vite. We will support Vite and Next.js and Expo/React Native, and you can use any backend you want. So any GraphQL backend you want, you can really plug it in. WunderGraph is really just the BFF, and that gives you all the flexibility, all the power of Relay, but without the headaches. You don't have to set up anything. There's batteries included, and we have one question here from Ian Lai about, does WunderGraph support Relay's persisted queries? And the point is, from the very beginning of WunderGraph, I was the biggest advocate of persisted operations. Actually, one of the core paradigms behind WunderGraph is to persist operations. And if you look back into the blog post history of WunderGraph, I think the second blog post is one of my famous blog posts. GraphQL is not meant to be exposed over the internet. And a lot of people misunderstand this post and thought like, well, you should expose blah, blah. The point is, what I'm trying to say with that blog post is you should persist your operations. And WunderGraph persists operations since forever. And the Relay integration is really huge because the Relay compiler collects all your fragments, all your queries, and puts them together. And we switch on persisted operations by default. So really, Relay prints out a persisted.json file with all the hashes and all the operations into the file system. WunderGraph picks this up and stores all the operations automatically on the server, creates JSON RPC endpoints, and generates a type-safe client with a Relay adapter, so that Relay automatically uses, during development already, it uses persisted operations. So we're never sending a query anymore, which also means queries become GET requests, mutations post, and we also support subscriptions. Danny did some amazing work here. And yeah, it's a fantastic integration. It really feels like WunderGraph is one of the missing pieces that Meta forgot to open source, and we're closing this gap now. And I'm so excited for this movement. And we will soon release more info on the Relay stack, because we want to build an open source website where we document patterns and best practices, and where we build like getting started kits in general to get from zero to web plus React Native in almost no time with very good defaults, and you don't have to worry about so many things. You can just enjoy the usage of Relay and Fragments. Da, da, da.
We have a follow-up question from Ian.
Yeah. So the persisted operations for the Relay adapter goes through the generated endpoints rather than /GraphQL, for example. Yes, exactly. So there's no /GraphQL. WunderGraph by default doesn't even expose a GraphQL endpoint, very similar to Meta. If you have ever seen the Meta GraphQL API in public, I don't. And yes, this happens. It doesn't even have to happen at CI time. It happens during development. Like you write a query or a fragment, Relay compiler does its thing, writes it to the file system. WunderGraph picks up that file, creates the RPC endpoint, and we're done. And all of that works. And yeah, maybe next session we do a demo of that.
Let's do it. We also have one more question during that, which was from Decoder. Are there plans to support more languages, especially for mobile frameworks?
What other mobile frameworks? So I know that we support everything TypeScript. If I go to the WunderGraph landing page, give me 1 second because we now support so many. We support Next.js, Remix, Next, Svelte, Astro, Expo. In the future, we want to support iOS and Android. We need to figure out in which ways. Ideally, we find someone who wants to use it. Yeah, because we usually don't want to build into the void. So I really hate to build something because I think it's good and then nobody uses that and gives us feedback. So yeah, if someone wants to use a mobile framework, come to our Discord, we talk about that, and then we can build it together.
Very cool. And then Decoder added another question, and I'm going to just quickly link our product lane account so that way we don't have to build into the void. You guys can always add any of your feedback to our product lane account, and from there we can, prioritize our roadmap. And Decoder, thank you for the nice words. We are very excited with what we're building. And then the last question is Jens. How did we meet? Because a lot of people have been asking us since the seed funding announcement. And I always think it's kind of an interesting story how I met a guy over the internet and we worked together for a year. And he was located in Germany and I was located in Miami. How did we meet, Jens?
Yeah, that's a great story. I probably forgot some of the details, but I think the main storyline really is that WunderGraph for a very long time was a solo piece. So it was really just me trying to roll the ball up the hill, and it was very hard work and nobody cared about WunderGraph. And it's the classic first time founder thing. You build software, you build software, you build software, and you believe that everybody will immediately appreciate your smartness and everything, and everybody will fall in love with your product. That didn't happen, and for multiple reasons, there was a time when I actually wanted to quit WunderGraph. I wanted to sell WunderGraph. It didn't work. Nobody wanted to buy it, and eventually there was one last straw. So I found Y Combinator co-founder Match. And I thought, okay, maybe I cannot do it alone. Maybe I need some help because I'm just a dev. Maybe I need someone who's better in meeting people, who's better in networking, because I really suck at networking. I'm not like some people naturally like to network. I naturally like to unnetwork. So yeah, I like to build stuff, and I actually really like to talk to customers or prospects and figure out a solution. That's something I really enjoy. I enjoy conversations in smaller groups. I really don't like large groups of people. That's absolutely not something where I feel comfortable. Okay. And so I thought I need some help. I thought maybe I need a co-founder because I also talked to some VCs and they kept telling me, Jens, you need a co-founder. And so, yeah, I went to YC co-founder match. I met a whole bunch of people, and somehow I felt like this doesn't really help me because like it was very weird from time to time. Like some people they tell you in how many ways they can help you, and they have so many ideas, but they really didn't execute. However, there was one guy, and at that time I wasn't really sure like what to do with him because he was a bit younger and like not so experienced. But he was from Miami and maybe he's cool. Well, let's try it out. And I think to some degree, Stefan is really the person who he was for a while. He was really my last straw because I didn't want to admit to Stefan that I would give up. So I think he really helped me in the hardest times of WunderGraph to keep going. And together we were able to find the first customer and we were able to improve marketing, and he helped me with SEO and he did so many things to really pull me out of that hole and help me network more. And when you network more, you meet some people who are interested, you have good discussions, and all of that creates some positivity. And so yeah, that's my point of the story. Stefan, what do you remember?
Yeah, so it's a very good, it kind of covered everything, but I think one important thing was so Y Combinator, find a co-founder. It's this website. It's basically like Tinder, but for finding a co-founder. And I was working as a software engineer, I know, surprisingly, at a pretty large company. And oh, okay, we gotta put this one up on there. Thank you, David. But so yeah, I was working as a software engineer, and I worked with startups before. I had my own marketing agency, and I don't know, I wanted to build something from the ground up, or I wanted to join somebody that was passionate like I was. I couldn't find anybody in Miami, so I joined this site, and I literally put in my bio, I am looking for a technical genius. And Jens messaged me, goes, "Hi, I'm a technical genius. Let's talk." And so we hop on a call with Jens, and like at first, we didn't know if we were serious or nothing, but we just started kind of working together. And then I brought in a friend, and then the friend kind of dropped down. So it was me and Jens for a while. And then it was me, Jens, and another guy, and another guy. And we kept trying and trying and trying till we found Dustin. And then Dustin was on a team, and then he got fired, and then he came back in. But that's another session. That's another episode, which is super funny, actually, because Dustin is a huge part of WunderGraph today. And then after that, it was me, Dustin, and Jens, and we were just building and building. And it's important to note that Jens has a family. He just had his second child, and he was putting in crazy hours for WunderGraph and for his other job. And he would work 40 hours for them, 40 hours for WunderGraph. And we were doing the exact same. We were working as much as we could on WunderGraph on the side because I don't know, like Jens said it a long time ago in the retreat. Like, was it the naive, like the me being naive? But for some reason, there was something in me that always made me believe. I was like, I don't know. We just need to push and push and push because I know we will. And we started doing that, and we got our first enterprise customer. And that's when we really started to figure things out. But in the beginning, Jens said this thing, which was super important, which was we just need to throw spaghetti at the wall. Which, by the way, I didn't know this. To figure out if spaghetti is al dente is if you throw it on the wall and it sticks. And he's like, we just need to find the noodle that sticks. And so we tried everything, and then we tried cross posting, and it stuck. And then we figured out what really worked, and we went for it. And so it was super awesome. And like today, we're a team of 13 incredible engineers, and we have a couple non-technical people, which are also incredible. And we were saying today, like our other co-founder, Bjorn, you ever see that meme where it's like the otter protecting the city? That's Bjorn. He protects us from all the boring stuff like legal and all the things that, nobody really wants to do, but he goes and he absolutely smashes it. And so that's kind of how me and Jens met. And a lot of people do ask me this, like, was it weird to work with somebody for a year and not meet them and be scared or anything? But for Jens, the biggest thing with him, which I really appreciated, was trust. He said, you have to trust me and I have to trust you. And it's the same thing that we tell the team, is just trust. And we just dove right into it, and that's where we are today. And then we have one question from Decoder, Jens. So speaking of building your team, are you guys hiring?
Yeah, I would love to hire. We completely maxed out our burn rate. And yeah, unfortunately not at this moment. So the problem is actually we even overhired slightly just because, for example, Danny, I don't remember exactly where he came from, but he had so much energy we just couldn't not hire him. And then we just were like, okay, we have to do it. How often do you find people with the right energy? And now he's building all this amazing relay stuff, and I'm so excited. So that was really great. And yeah, on Decoder, this is I wouldn't say regarding the one-man show, it was really hard to bring WunderGraph from zero to, I wouldn't exactly say one, but from zero to something. And the point is, what I learned, especially over the last couple of months, is really the team matters, and then there's the team, and then there's also the team, and it's really it's about building and empowering a team that can do stuff self-sustained. You know, at the very early days when I wanted to do something, when I wanted to achieve something, I always had to decide between, okay, do I do marketing or do I improve the product? Let's say I 1 week I build a new feature and then 1 week I do some marketing. And nowadays I can think a bit more strategic. I still develop to some degree and I can talk to customers. But nowadays, what I really can do is I can figure out, okay, let's create a linear board. Let's figure out what are the important things to work on. Let's assign that to people who can actually do it. And yeah, it just gets you to a whole new level of productivity, and you actually feel like you're moving somewhere. And I appreciate so much that we have so many smart people who take ownership in different areas of the company. And yeah, it's gotten to a point where I don't fully understand WunderGraph anymore. Like if there's something with the builder or something in the cloud, then I ask somebody to do that. And yeah, I think it's a great bunch of people we were able to assemble. I appreciate everybody who joined us. And honestly, every morning I joined the Slack. I'm really happy to see everybody's there and everybody's in a good mood. And I think we do something great together. And yeah, I think that's it.
Love that. Great words, Jens. And Decoder, what I can recommend though is just like in Danny's instance, contributing to WunderGraph is a great way to be seen by us. And if you want, in our jobs page, apply for the position, say you're from the stream, and we'll keep it extra look on it when we do decide to hire again. So thank you again for showing up. We do have one more question before we close up the stream from Leo. So this is Leo from our Discord, Leo Alves.
What is the productivity secret? I'm not even sure if there's a productivity secret. Maybe we're good at communicating what we do. We're actually quite transparent in what we do and how we do it. There's a bunch of companies that, for example, do like launch weeks or they do special marketing stuff. My personal opinion is that we're actually quite open about what we do, where we go, what we build, how we build it. I mean, most of WunderGraph is open source, and I really like that because if you look at our monorepo, you will see that we have almost 50 contributors, and the team is like 12. And there's so many people involved, like even if it's small changes, but we had one amazing guy who added a Svelte integration. Other people contributed to the docs, some other figured out bugs, and then yeah, so I don't know what's the productivity trick. I would say it's more like we're just transparent in what we do. And another thing I would say internally, I always really feel like everybody cares about what we do and everybody wants to make it right. So when you find something like there's a bug on the website or some let's say there's a glitch in the user interface and you you write a message into the Slack like, hey, we have a glitch in one of our blog posts, you will immediately find someone who fixes that. Or just in general, like if you look at people like Alberto, they always try to figure out something like, there's a bug in open source or someone on the Discord has an issue. Our team, there's always someone who tries to figure out what could it be, how can we improve that. And lately I think we really improved a lot on performance, and not performance, I mean on stability. We added a new test suite that's actually used by some of our enterprise customers already. That makes us super happy. The test suite helps us to make WunderGraph a lot more stable, not break anything. And I really like the direction we're going.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you guys again so much for joining us. We're going to give it 2 more minutes if you guys have any last minute questions. But in the meantime, I'd like to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, WunderGraph, the backend for front end framework. So thank you so much, WunderGraph, for sponsoring this stream.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Jens, if we see you here. So thank you guys for sponsoring this stream. And by the way, the mocking test suite will be shown next week. We're going to have Dustin on the show and tell, and he's going to show you guys what he built in a weekend. It's kind of crazy. He went Friday and he was like, you know what, we need a better testing suite. And he just built it. And I mean,
some people tweet that you shouldn't test your code because it has no value. And just today I saw a post about where, like, what kind of tests make the most sense. Like, there's the testing pyramid, like unit test, integration, end-to-end test, and where's the actual value? If you're a company like WunderGraph and people build API integrations, that means I create a BFF that connects to a front end, and that BFF makes, let's say, a call to a search engine. When writing this BFF, and you are someone reasonable, what you actually want to do is you want to be able to write a test to make sure that you're calling this third-party API in the right way with the right parameters and everything is correct. And while testing, we have someone else who is working with blockchains. You don't want to make blockchain calls while you're testing, so you want to mock out that API dependency. So for us, it is essential that we have such a test suite because our users and customers, they want to write tests to make sure their integrations actually work. And sometimes I don't know what to say about some of the discussions on Twitter. It might really depend on what kind of application you're building or how critical it is. In our case, testing is essential for our users.
Awesome. Well, I think that wraps up our first Ask Me Anything from WunderGraph. So thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Jens, for taking time out of your day. Another quick shout out to our sponsor, WunderGraph. So thank you guys for that. And if you guys like these, let us know. We're going to start doing them bi-weekly every Friday. And you guys can bring the questions as well as we'll collect questions during the week. We'll also continue with our show and tell. So next week we'll be showing off a little bit of the relay, or well, we haven't named the stack yet, so make sure you drop your suggestions below, as well as our mocking test suite. So thank you guys again so much. Thank you, Jens. And this will be on YouTube, so you guys can give it a watch if you weren't able to make the stream. So thank you, like and subscribe.
Thank you, Stefan.
Always. Bye, guys.
Ciao, ciao.